Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. When it comes to the climate, it's proved to be a very useful tool for the promotion of the communist agenda, perhaps even more so than the illegal immigration issue has been. The reason why is that immigration is essentially a U.S.-only issue, while climate alarmism has been ginned up to be a worldwide issue. It is two separate lines of attack, ultimately, aimed at destabilizing the republic, of course, but the climate cause has diverted trillions of U.S. tax dollars into the pockets of globalists and their agenda, with no end in sight. These people are enemies of the republic, both foreign and domestic enemies, and in their push to end America, they have employed a dizzying array of weapons, with one of the major ones being the two-sided coin of propaganda and censorship. The censorship of scientists who challenge the communist narrative, that's pretty much attested to, even so far as attacking and canceling a Nobel Prize winner, Dr. John Klausler, who was a featured presenter at this week's Deposit of Faith Coalition press conference in Baltimore.
Much as it may upset many people, my message is the planet is not in peril. I think this is good news. I believe there is no climate crisis. The alleged atmospheric CO2 and methane have negligible effect on the climate. The policies where our government has been implementing are totally unnecessary and should be eliminated, and that trillions of dollars can be saved.
The guy won a Nobel Prize, the Washington Post. So, of course, the Marxist media, the Washington Post, could not resist taking a pot shot at Klausler. In it was the Washington Post who were at the press conference. A reporter was there, and they went on to publish this headline, quote, "He won a Nobel Prize. Then he started denying climate change." The threat to the republic was spelled out in pretty clear terms by award-winning international journalist Alex Newman of Liberty Sentinel, who has been following this topic up close and personal for many years now. In a post-talk interview, he discussed what's in store for America at the upcoming COP28 climate summit in Dubai at the end of the month.
I focused primarily on the religious angle with the coming out of the new 10 Commandments. They said they're working on a third covenant. Unbelievable blasphemy and absurdity. So one of the other things that happened there that was very important is Joe Biden and John Kerry, the climate czar, pled guilty on behalf of the United States, on behalf of the American people, for our alleged climate crimes. So every hurricane, every tornado, every flood, every drought, everything that ever happens is now our fault, and we don't have to have a trial. We don't have to examine the evidence. We've already pled guilty. And so what they decided was we were going to have to redistribute trillions of dollars from us, from the American people, because we invented air conditioner, we built factories, we extended the lifespan of people around the world 40, 50 years, we freed humans from backbreaking labor. And so all that now needs to be properly punished. We need to pay our due. And so at this next one in Dubai, they're going to work out just exactly how much of our money they're going to take, how much they're going to seize from the middle class in America, and what the mechanism will be through which they steal it. So the trial was in Egypt. We pled guilty. We didn't even contest the charges. Now we'll be sentenced in Dubai. At least that's their plan. The very first climate summit I went to, fresh out of journalism school, I graduated end of 2008. Next year I was in Copenhagen for, I think it was the COP15. And the Communist Chinese sent a big delegation, and they had this fancy chart and this fancy formula where they explained that because of their one-child policy, ruthlessly enforced with forced abortion, forced sterilization, etc., they had produced 400 million less human beings. Each of those human beings would have emitted an average of, and I forget the numbers, but X amount of CO2. Therefore, Y amount of CO2 had not gone into the atmosphere as a result of forced abortions, forced sterilizations, mass atrocities. And they're saying this like it's a good thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, we must live in a different universe. Like, how can you act like that's a good thing? So that was my first introduction to these UN climate summits.
And of course, whenever there's some kind of Marxist, communist, globalist push going on, well, you can count on key people in the hierarchy of the church to be cheerleading the effort, all in the name, of course, of social justice and loving your neighbor. That aspect or dynamic of all of this has not escaped the careful watch of Mark Morano, who has done a terrific job of cataloging it for many years now.
The Pope is actually scheduled, I believe, for the first time ever, attending a UN climate summit. And sadly, this would give nothing short of a stamp of approval for everything the United Nations climate agenda is trying to do. And it's not good. By going, he's endorsing this UN climate fund, which I've actually talked to residents in South Africa, development activists, and they say the UN climate fund is explicitly designed to pay the country's leaders who are able to keep their citizens locked in poverty the most. This is immoral. It's telling people from the white, wealthy Western world, the European, American, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, we're telling the developing world through the UN, you can't develop like we did. The earth can't handle it. But don't worry. We're going to keep you at a low level. We're going to manage you. We're going to pipe all this money to your leaders. Now, the money may not make it to you, but hey, they'll be able to build monuments themselves, conference centers. They'll be able to buy votes. They'll be able to ensure their reelection and give out all that money. And we'll keep that money going as long as they don't develop their own natural resources. So this is the message that the Pope is endorsing by going to this summit.
And of course, it's not just the Pope, it's the U.S. bishops almost completely in lockstep. So before continuing, we'd like to thank the many, many supporters out there who donated to make all of that entire press conference come together. This is how you get messages out and get people talking about stuff. It takes a long time, but you are the people ultimately responsible for the success of such efforts because, quite simply, without your backing, these press conferences just don't happen. We can sit here in the studio day after day with all kinds of ideas and plans and schemes and all kinds of, hey, this is cool, let's do this. But if you don't agree with them and then back them and give them the necessary juice, they go nowhere. So for everyone in the Deposit of Faith Coalition, of which, of course, Church Militant is a member, you have our very deep gratitude. Thank you. The average Joe still doesn't get the war that is going on, a war the Queen of Heaven came to earth to warn us about. In 2,000 years, Our Lady has never come to earth to warn about a specific form of government until 1917 in Fatima, a mere couple of weeks before the Russian Revolution. Talk about let him who has ears hear. Climate change, illegal immigration, wiping out the family, undermining the republic, wrecking the economy, and a host of things. They're all just different facets of the same ugly jewel. Like all wars, this one has many different battles and many different battlefields, but they're all part of the one single large effort. They've been at this, the commies, for over a century, and we are very far behind. Perhaps too far behind. That remains to be seen, but in the meantime, that doesn't make the war or all of these many little individual battles any less worth fighting. It actually makes them more worth fighting. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.